welcome to this edition of Elvenhome, in which I finally reveal how I'm going to go about building the next scratch build, which is the hotel in an Art Deco style. I also take a look at the work that I've been doing at the front of the station and the market square, which is beginning to come together, and give you a closer look at the two trains that are running behind, with both pulled by A3 locomotives, Colorado and Flying Scotsman. So first of all, let's give you a closer look at the first one of two closer look at the trains running before I discuss what I'm going to be doing in building the hotel. Well, it's time to reveal the design that I'm settling upon, because it is still a work in progress. Although I think I have now settled on the what it will look like externally. Not yet how I'm going to build it, but what it will look like externally. But the picture in front of you is the hotel that I mentioned, the Midland Hotel, which was originally built by London, Midland and Scottish Railway in the 1930s, and is archetypically Art Deco, in the marriage, as you see, of curves and straight lines and geometric forms, and very much the inspiration for what I'm going to try and build. What I am not going to try and build is this hotel. One, it would be much too big. Two, I'm not going to try and build a building which is curved to the extent that this one is, but I'm trying to take elements from this for the model that I'm going to do. I've also been looking, if you'll excuse me clicking to a new page, this is another Art Deco hotel. This one's in South Beach, Miami, which uses elements of getting curves in, even though actually the building itself is pretty square. And it's not alone in that kind of style. If I move down a bit, you'll see another one here. That's in Canberra, Omaha, and there are plenty of others. Another in Miami, which seem to give you the idea of what I'm aiming to try and achieve. So, having shown you what I'm aiming to try and achieve, what I'll now do is glide into the next bit, where I'll show you what my design is. Okay, well, I've rearranged the camera now so that you can see the design as it's coming together. The hotel is not huge. Weathertop's not that big a place that it would need a massive hotel, and it certainly wouldn't need something the size of the Midland Hotel. So it has 24 rooms, so it can hold up to about 50 people. It has on the ground floor, on the left-hand side, a restaurant. And I'm trying to work out how I can try and source some tables and chairs so that I can put some figures eating in the restaurant. On the right hand side is a bar, which I think I'm going to call the Rivendell. And the entrance is, the center section here is curved. So you enter in through the curved to the doors into the central lobby, which is where the reception is, with doors leading off to the side and the lifts, which go up this wall here. And this is a huge window that sits above the entrance, through which you can see each of the floors and the handrails that stop people falling off those floors, because the floors are set back. Because this is on a curve, the floors are set back, they don't come right up to the window. That I'm doing partly because I'm hoping to light part of this. If I light every floor, I think that would be very bright indeed. Ideally, I'd like to light it from above and hope that it just cascades down, but we'll see when I come to try and build this thing. Now, as I mentioned, I want to try and get curves into this building, and I'm using some of those buildings that you saw in the previous section. The way that I'm going to try and do that is sort of a combination of things. If I come down to the plan, here you can see more clearly the curved section that forms the door, which will have walls going in, and the doorway comes in here. And on the ground floor, this is the central lobby with the reception, and then I think they would be at the back, doors going off that take you into the bar here and into the restaurant here. The corners are going to be made from quarter dowel. Here's a piece of it. It's cut. That's actually the right height that it's eventually coming out, and you'll see that's slightly bigger than the model. The quarter dowel sits there, so that gives me the curve of each corner. Take my finger out the way and you get a chance to see it. There we go. Actually, let's put it onto this one because it's easier to see there. So that gives me the curve of each corner. On the front of the building, and I think I'm going to do this on each floor, I'm going to use 1mm square strip styrene to put in strips, each one 5mm shorter than the other, so that the from where the curved wall stops, you see the wall beginning to come out to match the radius of this dowel. To try and give you an idea of what at least the curve might look like, you'll see that there are lines drawn on there because I've been dusting off my O-level geometry again to work out how to calculate the length of an arc, which is this length here. Because when you have something that's flat and you curve it, and any hole that's in there will actually slightly become smaller across its narrowest part. So when I cut this big window, if I move up here, when I cut this big window at the top, although on this plan that is only 20mm across, to get down to 20mm on a curve, it has to be bigger. And in fact, it has to be 23mm wide. And as I bend it round a curve where the radius is 20mm, which is what the radius of the, if I come down again, the radius of this curve is, those 3mm will come down so that the narrowest part will be 20 and everything will sit as it should. I've already had an attempt at doing that this is very much a lash up. This piece of paper is 42mm wide where the paper is curved in, and once it's stuck in the right place it curves perfectly to give a radius of 20mm. So I know that I've got my figures right, and as you'll see here there will be a doorway here going into the door which will actually sit on this wall, and that's where the big window is going to be. Because I've not yet made up my mind entirely what material I'm going to build this out of, it's possible that I will either be able to find a 00 gauge brass etch window or canopy roof window, which because it's brass I would be able to bend, or if I'm using plastic I can probably make the window some acetate on the back and then just put strips across to give the impression of the crossbars of the window, because I have an idea for something on the front but I don't know whether I can pull it off, so I won't mention that, and that will be something for you to see as and when the build gets underway. So that's the idea of how I'm going to try and put curves into this building, This is going to be a building that's going to need to be built in stages. I think I am likely, if I go up again to the top, I want there to be a clear delineation between each floor. So each floor is going to be 1 millimeter thick. I'm going to be using this sort of plastic card. This is a mock-up of me trying to get an idea of the front shape of the window. Because if I'm going to be sticking 1 millimeter strips on it, then it needs to be nice and clear. And that is likely to mean that I will probably build each floor in sections. So the dowels will be at the end. This whole section here will be built because the curved section will come round and cover that. And then I will put the next floor on, and then I'll build each of these two sides either way. For the back is less well developed in terms of design. If I go to the back, these windows merely mirror the windows on the front. Of course, there's a corridor because these are separate rooms, all separate rooms. And the bottom will largely be access doors or fire doors, because that would be coming out of the back of the bar and the restaurant. So I don't think there's going to be much in the way of the bottom there. The end, I've not fully decided yet, but I'm going to try and keep that pretty plain, probably just an access window for the corridor. So that's where I've got to. That's taken a lot of thought to come up with that design, not least because there's a combination of what was it that I'd like to build, and I've got an image in my head. How do I build it? And the how then has to sometimes drive what can I build. And it was only when I sourced the 16mm radius dowel from B&Q that I finally settled on how to get curves into the side of the building, because the piece of plastic that you saw before, if I bring it back in, this piece of plastic was my first attempt to try and fashion something by hand, and it's okay, but I would need to replicate that 5 times for the purposes of the building. And it took ages, and it's not actually brilliant, but it gave me the overall shape that I was initially aiming for, although in fact I've squared it off. But with the walls being set back as they are, I think that will look okay. Now, that's 8 minutes of chat, so we'll go off and do something else now to give you, but I hope it's given you a flavour of what I'm going to attempt to do here. This is likely to be quite a long build, I think, because, as I say, I'm still trying to settle in my mind the various stages, and I will video as I go along and try and put them into the videos over the coming weeks, but try and keep them relatively short, because just being talked at for a long time is quite hard to cope with. So I think that's enough of this. Let's move on to the next section of the video. Well, just for the final section of the video, I'm just going to talk you through the work I've been doing at the front of the station, and 1 or 2 other slight changes to where buildings will go, as I'm beginning to firm up now what is going to happen in the whole of this part of the layout. You'll see that the Metcalfe kits have grown. I was going to eventually have 5 kits. In fact, I bought 6. And they all fit on quite nicely. They're sitting on some evergreen paving, which is, I think it's 1/8 of an inch square, the paving. And that's giving a really nice base, which I can leave as just when all the market stalls are not there. Of course, this would just be an open area, but the market's there most days. The one thing it's missing is people. And if there's one thing this has got to have, it is people. I think to do it justice, it's obviously got to have 1 person at each market stall. So that's 36 figures at least. It probably needs a ratio of 2 to 1 for customers to market stall holders. Probably more than that, but there's only so many figures I can bring myself to paint. So I'm looking to source about 100 or so unpainted figures at a reasonable price that aren't also cheap and horrible. I mean, there are plenty on eBay, you can get very large numbers of figures, but when you look at them, they're very poor definition. And this is, I know these figures are very small, but these are close enough to be able to see. If I were putting them up at the back of the layout, I wouldn't be quite so troubled. So if anybody has a good source of reasonably priced unpainted figures, do let me know, because I'm looking around at the moment to see what's available. The station itself, as you can see, the paving has gone in the front of the station. The police box, telephone box and pillar box are in. You can just about see a bus sat where the bus stop will be. I'm trying to think about, I've got some very small bus stops which I bought from Langley Models, so I can put some bus stops in. It's whether I can fit some a bus shelter in there, which I think I may have to make it look realistic. I've got a new idea for what will go in the front of the station, where the big open gap is. That some of that obviously needs to be big and open to allow buses and taxis to come through. But I will show you what that is in the next episode, because with luck it should arrive with me by then, and I'll have been able to put it together and put it in place, which I think will be in keeping with what the railway had in mind when it first pushed a railway through here. You'll see just to the right, if I move slowly so not to jar the camera, I've put fencing up around what will be the parcels and newspaper drop. And although I've got a lorry sitting in front, I think actually it's more going to be vans. So I'm on the lookout for 1930s, 40s vans that I can use in that area. And with the fencing going in, I do want to do some scenic work there. The fencing obviously gives it boundaries. It wouldn't have bushes or anything in there. This is a very functional area, which is largely lots of very smelly diesel lorries going in and out. But there would be something there. It wouldn't just be this plain, and I'm just thinking about what I might do there. Probably try and get something up against the fences that would suggest there was sort of loose gravel or asphalt on the floor, which has been pushed to the sides. But I'll have a think about that before I do anything, because once it's down, it's down. And the garden is in its place, which you saw the last time. If I zoom out a little now, you'll see that I've obviously, I like where that additional engine shed is. I think that makes more sense for it all to be on that side, given the other two sheds are here. There will be a line coming off of the turntable up to the coaling stage, obviously. And I will be able to show you in the next episode also a kit that I bought from Langley for a water column, so that the trains can both be watered and coaled at the same time. The area to the left of the turntable, I'm obviously going to have a think about what I put in there. At the moment, I've moved one of the factories so there could be an area there where goods are going away, but that won't be fed by rail. And I've used the entrance has gone down to provide a better entrance for the gasworks. I think that whole lot in the corner there now makes a lot more sense. And the road will come under, where you can see the lorries going, it will come under the left-hand arch, and there'll be a right-hand turning taking it up the hill to where the station is. So that's where I am so far. The next bit of work is to carry on around to the left here. I want to put cork down where all the white is to get rid of all of that. And to start doing some work preparatory to putting the memorial garden in place. And also, obviously, to start work on scratch building the Art Deco Hotel. So that's about it for today. I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, please do like it. It really helps. If you haven't subscribed, please do subscribe and hit the bell notification so you know when I'm uploading. And until I speak to you again, oh yes, and if you've got any comments, please do leave comments. I really enjoy the comments. The comments have been helping me as I build this. They've set me off building an Art Deco hotel when I was going to build a very simple Victorian one. The market square that you see in front of you was not in my mind. That came from ideas when I ask for ideas about what do I put in the front. So if you've got any comments you want to leave, please do. I look forward to receiving them. So until I speak to you again, that's bye-bye. Bye-bye.